I speculated yesterday that it's got to be really, really frustrating for conservatives that every time Fox News gins up this big talking point about how Trump is going after their political enemies, as he did for Letitia James, James Comey, the guy with the mustache, Bolton, so on and so forth, right? Jeremy Powell, right? Every single time they do this, no convictions, everything falls through, never see them in court, they're never perp walk, nothing happens, right? So, as you may recall, Don Lemon was arrested after he interviewed some people who went in to protest inside of a church, and he was arrested on this insane civil rights law about blocking access to civil institutions, just some insane shit. Okay, Matt Walsh posted, and I think this is really funny because it's like he was watching me. I'm very happy Don Lemon was arrested, but there is one extremely important caveat now that it's been done. He has to be convicted and sent to prison for an extended length of time. If he is not convicted or not seriously punished, then this whole thing is an unequivocal win for him. It makes him a martyr and 10 times more famous with no significant consequence. Lemon was totally irrelevant prior to this. Nobody watched his show or even knew he was still alive. Now he's relevant again. He'll almost certainly get another job on cable news in the heels of this. The only way to make this a win for the good guys is to punish him severely. Make the reward of fame and martyrdom not worth the cost. If you won't do that, you should never have arrested him. Several hours after this post, Don Lemon was released. And here he is on CNN, relevant once more.
Former CNN anchor turned independent journalist Don Lemon appeared in federal court this afternoon to face charges related to a live streaming report he did at a protest during a church service in St. Paul, Minnesota. Here's what he told reporters afterwards.
Last night, the DOJ sent a team of federal agents to arrest me in the middle of the night for something that I've been doing for the last 30 years, and that is covering the news. The First Amendment of the Constitution protects that work for me and for countless of other journalists who do what I do. I stand with all of them, and I will not be silent. I look forward to my day in court.
Well, along with Don Lemon, 3 other people were arrested.
He has no chance of being convicted on these charges. The fact that he is already using this as a kind of a public rebound is really, 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 really funny. I don't like Don Lemon, okay? But I like him a lot more than I like MAGA. So again, I'm put in the unfortunate position of having to kind of juxtapose my preferences here.
Including Minnesota independent journalist Georgia Fort. She went before Judge Day. She joins us tonight. We'll have that interview in a moment. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the arrests are connected to a, quote, coordinated attack on City's church nearly 2 weeks ago. But Lemon and Fort say they were doing their jobs as journalists and were not protesters. All 4 arrested are charged with 1 count of conspiracy against right of religious freedom at place of worship and 1 count of injure, intimidate, and interfere with exercise of right of religious freedom at place of worship. In announcing their arrests on social media this morning, Bondi used the words, quote, at my direction, which is not what you typically see from an attorney general. The White House.
Yeah, it really isn't. By the way, posts like this guarantee that Don Lemon will not be convicted on anything because prosecutorial misconduct is the reason why DOJ cases kept getting thrown out by judges. It's not always because the charges are bunk. It's because the DOJ is so obviously scathingly partisan and vindictive and targeted in how they issue these charges that the judge is like, this is obviously bullshit, get it out of here. So the White House and Pam Bondi both immediately going like, we got you, does not help their case. But they don't give a they would rather get the likes on Twitter.
Has posted this photo with the words, when life gives you lemons, along with a chain emoji.
They're ineffective because more and more the behavior of MAGA in government is to act like Twitter leftists, sacrifice everything for the clout.
President Trump has been critical, obviously, of Don Lemon for years. Lemon himself has not been shy in calling out the president and his administration. A magistrate judge had initially refused to allow federal officials to arrest Lemon and take him into custody, but they took it to a grand jury in Minnesota and got a felony indictment. The indictment, unsealed this afternoon, alleges that Don Lemon and the others charged, quote, oppressed, threatened, and intimidated the church congregants and pastors. Here's some of what Lemon said during that live stream. Take a look.
I'm just here photographing.
Are you okay?
I'm not part of the group. I'm just here photographing. I'm a journalist. We don't know. That's what they're saying. So we're here just chronicling and reporting. We're not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them.
Don Lemon's attorney released a statement saying in part, quote, "This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court." When agents showed...
If it even makes it that far. Again, there's still plenty of time for these charges to be tossed. It's only been a couple of days.
Up at Georgia Fort's door yesterday, she started recording. Here's some of her message.
You guys, I wanted to alert the public that agents are at my door right now. This is all stemming from the fact that I filmed a protest as a member of the media. We are supposed to have our constitutional right of the freedom to film, to be a member of the press. I don't feel like I have my First Amendment right as a member of the press because now federal agents are at my door arresting me for filming the church protest a few weeks ago.
She'll make it out too. Don't worry. This will be a boost to all their careers in the long run.
It was a live stream she did on Facebook. Journalist Georgia Fort is out of jail and joins me tonight. Georgia, first of all, how are you doing? And were you surprised that you were arrested? Obviously, previous attempts to arrest you had been blocked by federal courts.
Yeah, you know, I'm hanging in there. It is quite frightening to have 24 agents outside of your home. You know, my children were home with me when I was arrested. And so, yeah, just it's been a long day. And yes, it was extremely shocking.
You had 24 agents show up at your door?
Yes.
I want to read part of what the Justice Department alleged in the indictment and let you respond. They claim, and you and the other defendants, quote, entered the church in a coordinated takeover-style attack and engaged in acts of oppression.
What I don't understand is how are they getting arrest warrants if judges are going to throw it out anyway? Well, you don't necessarily need to go to a judge to verify. Well, hold on. It depends on the exact circumstances here, but the broad answer is that they're judge shopping. In the case for Don Lemon, I believe that 2 judges threw out the warrants. They said, like, no, we're not going to sign off on this. They had to get a 3rd one, and they obtained it by lying to a grand jury. Like, grand juries will sign off on they'll sign off on people's arrests, but you don't have to provide them all the information. You can provide them biased information. It's one of the reasons why grand juries almost always allow you to arrest. That doesn't necessarily mean those charges will stand. Can't any case get raised to the Supreme Court theoretically? Basically, yeah. But they can. Like, there are bajillions of cases across the U.S. The Supreme Court only hears a couple of hundred every year. Even if they pass a bunch of them through the shadow docket without a full rationalization, they can only go through so many. Yeah, they get to decide what cases they'll hear.
Today, to see their colleagues be arrested for reporting the news. And so, you know, being a journalist who's from here, who's from Minnesota, I've been on the ground. This is my community. I'm not flying in and flying out. I'm here. And I'm doing the best that I can to tell the stories of what's really happening. And as an American-born citizen, it's always been my understanding that I have that protection under the Constitution, under the First Amendment, that we have a freedom of press. But today,
I really, really wish, no hate to her, she's going through a lot, but I really wish they would take more, they would employ more dramatic language when talking about what is happening here. You don't need to say you have a First Amendment protection. You do. That should be granted, right? You should say the administration despises the First Amendment because they're tyrants. You know, like I know you have a right. I just think that we should be a little bit more aggressive with our language, you know? Storming a church is bad. They didn't storm a church. They were journalists interviewing people. But also, the people who were protesting inside the church are allowed to enter the church. You can enter a church, you know? They're not like public buildings, but like you can you can go into a Starbucks and protest. You're allowed to do that. The most they can hit you with is trespassing if you refuse to leave. But even then, it's kind of like it kind of depends, you know? But they weren't even charged with trespassing. They were charged with this bullshit civil rights law. Like the idea that the journalists in there asking people who were protesting questions were the ones denying access to the building to others. Completely insane. But I'm guessing they wanted to do that because they couldn't get at them with trespassing, right? Like trespassing was too minor of a charge. They wouldn't have been able to drum up this big, circus with like a federal court and felony charges and so on. I don't understand this move. All it does is make Don Lemon more famous. Well, as Matt Walsh pointed out, this stuff is not good for them in the long run if they keep just like making martyrs. Not even martyrs. They just like elevate all the people they go after. But the truth is that they have no long-term plan. They're just like doing whatever they think feels right, and what feels right is maximal cruelty at every point, no matter how ineffective. They're not smart people. Yep, influencer admin, 100%. Underrated reason for why they fail. The career prosecutors refuse to participate, so the only ones who take it up are the idiots. Yeah, that's a big part of it, for sure. But even if the best, most competent prosecutors in America were taking up these cases, they're just bullshit charges, Like, they could have competent prosecutors. It wouldn't change the fact that charges are fake and the DOJ and White House are both demonstrating obvious political bias in their prosecution. So it's like they're failing on every level here. Career DOJ prosecutors in both Minnesota and Los Angeles refuse to be involved in charging Don Lemon and the other journalists who covered the Minneapolis church protests. Why would they? Like, why would they want to denigrate their careers, which will last long after Trump's term, by associating themselves with this mess? For the rest of their lives, they'll be known as somebody who assisted the Trump administration in trying to silence a journalist with bullshit felony charges. Not good. Harassing people in place of worship is bad. What do you on about right now? If this was any other holy place, you wouldn't be defending it. Why do people, okay, I don't know if it's like a bit. Why do people pretend that I don't act equally dismissive of all religions? Like I haven't made a million comments about Islam or Judaism. Like, what have I said about protests in synagogues against like the illegal sale of land in the West Bank? And I have literally said that the Islamification of Germany is a real problem because many of those guys are like Wahhabist radicals, and that it probably would be a good idea to de-radicalize them through government action. Like what I have made some pretty strong r/Reddit atheist comments here, okay? It's really not partial to Christianity. I get most annoyed by Christians if for no other reason than proximity. The country I live in is controlled by them. Anyway, the priest in that church was evil, and it's good to protest evil people. He was a demon, and he was a demon residing within a house of God. I would argue, if anything, it was the heavenly duty of those Minneapolis protesters to enter the church and indicate their dissatisfaction with the demonic tendencies of the priest. Yeah, it wasn't a protest, it was an exorcism. Really, what do you think Jesus would do in this situation? If Jesus entered a temple and the priests within were collaborating with the Roman prelate to find and deport the unfortunates, you think he wouldn't flip those tables? He was flipping tables over like financial shenanigans. With that, he would have been very upset.